Ross did. So my name's Tom. That's Ross, my business partner. And I'm just going to share my screen now just to get us started to talk through kind of where we're at and what we're going to cover with you today. So we've had a lot of questions come through. So we've tried to answer as many of them in the presentation as possible. We've also left quite a bit of space at the end for a Q&A session. So if there's any questions throughout, pop them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as best possible. But yeah, like Philip said, we've been in recruitment for the last 12 years, covering STEM technology, more recently focused on space and geospatial. Done a lot of work with university students, so it's quite nice to sort of speak to people with a bit more experience and sort of general life experience. So that's kind of a nice presentation for us to do. So apologies if some of this might be teaching you to suck eggs. That's not the intention, but we're going to try and share our experiences over the last 4 or 5 years of what we've seen and what we see currently. So yeah, I'll pass over to Ross, who just gives a bit of a background on, if I can get the screen to work. There we go.
I think Tom said we've got over 20 years sort of combined experience in recruitment and seen almost every scenario possible. And when I mean that, there's a lot of scenarios. And a lot of the challenges aren't just space specific. They are in sort of different industries, and we sort of touch on them as well. I think we do have that sector knowledge. We talk to a lot of people in the industry. That is candidates looking to get into the industry, candidates currently in the industry, hiring managers, CEOs. And I think there's some trends and some certain little things that you can and can't do that we've tried to encompass. But it's such a broad sector, as all you know, and it might be what we want to try and do is maybe open the different avenues within the space sector, not just specifically working for a company that builds rockets, as most people think. That's what we do. As you see, there's like a lot of technology within the industry that we work with. But Tom touched on it. The career support and the giving back is something that's actually really important. When we set up the business, it was the number one thing. We are STEM ambassadors, and we try and place STEM candidates where we can. To support not just the future, but the people that are going to join the industry. The space industry is growing. There's a lot of jobs in the industry that aren't even created anymore. So yeah, we try and support people getting into industry, looking to advance their careers.
Perfect. So I think the first bit I just kind of want to talk about is we hear it a lot from candidates with experience outside of the sector, and also from a lot of customers who are hiring in the sector. So there's a perception out there of these sort of 3 areas. So there's a perception when it comes to space that from an experience point of view, companies are looking for younger students, that if people do go back and restudy, or if they do decide to move from, let's say, fintech into the space industry, that their previous experience is wasted. And that the way of working of these new up-and-coming space startups is very different to the more established organizations. There's a perception when it comes to studies that there's thousands of junior graduates who are going to be coming through. They're going to get the jobs within the sector. There's no point in going back and studying. There's also massive perception. We've had a call with 2 customers today about internships, and they're sort of saying they're not just designed for younger students. Okay, we might call it something different. It could be part-time work, etc., to get you in, but there's a perception that only junior people or younger people can go in to their studies, and that also people feel sometimes it's too late to go back and restudy and relearn. And I think there's also that element of doubt that comes in when people think about transitioning into the sector. And again, don't know if anyone on this call has been in the same situation. However, it's that piece of, right, I don't want to feel like I'm going backwards in my career. Nobody would be interested in my experience. I'm not as up to speed as the sector with people currently in it or current studying in it. So there is there's a massive perception about why people shouldn't do it and challenges as to why. But actually, when obviously we speak day in, day out to customers, and the reality of it is, actually, do you know what? From an experience point of view, companies need people who've got real work experience and actually been involved in businesses. So what we hear and what we talk to students a lot about who are coming through their masters and graduating at a junior level is the challenges they face, that they don't have that real life experience. They don't have experience of project management, or they don't have any leadership experience. A massive one at the moment is problem solving experience. And those three things are huge when it comes to the space sector and where the need and the demand is at the moment. And we speak to a lot of businesses who will say, on paper, that person's profile is fantastic, but they don't have any experience in solving problems. They have no leadership experience, no project management experience. So the reality is there's a massive opportunity out there for people to transition into the sector from other areas. And also, I think in some of the newer space companies, a lack of sort of culture understanding when it comes to entering the working world. So that's where people who've been in maybe careers for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, there's a massive need for you individuals to come across. And sometimes even it doesn't need to be the same technology. It's just that life experience. And it's sometimes a bit cheesy, but it's so true. And I think people don't quite realize that. I think when it comes to studies, the reality is that myself and Ross have been doing it ourselves. We arguably probably felt like we were taking a bit of a backward step. We were earning good money in our last roles in senior positions, but for us, the passion was the most important thing in us running our own business. So we feel like we've taken a step backwards to go forwards. And I do feel like sometimes people want people within their business to continuously learn and continuously develop. There's no purpose of someone, if you're feeling you're stuck in a bit of a rut, you're not interested, you're not striving to succeed, it's never too late. And I think if anything, businesses, particularly in the space sector, but other sectors across STEM, really like to see people who are continuously looking to learn. It shows that ambition, shows that passion. And again, from people looking to transition across, we work with a company at the moment who, as a business, they're a startup. They've not got lots of money, but they're looking for people on a part-time basis who can transition in from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, project management to come and maybe work for them. It might be a bit of extra work outside of your normal working hours, but evenings, half day here, whole day here. But that's also another route to go in, which people aren't aware of. And the last bit, when it comes to the sort of doubt piece around the reality, I always say, and again, refer to me and Ross, but it's only a backward step if you make it a backward step. Typically, if you guys on this call are looking to transition across, there's a reason for that, whether it be that a personal reason, a work-related reason that you want to do. There is a reason, so don't treat it as a backward step, I think. And people sometimes go, I can't afford to do that in terms of where I'm at with my career. That's not the case. You can propel through a business very quickly if you come in with experience. And I think people sometimes don't realize that. But yeah, like we said, the biggest challenge, which a lot of you people on this call or people who are transitioning with experience into the sector, the biggest challenge is they don't have real life problem solving experience from previous roles, people coming into the sector. So there is a massive opportunity for people to come across, and businesses are actually screaming out for it. It's just kind of how, I know some of the questions are talking around, how do we do that? How do we get in front of people? What do we do? So that will kind of lead us on to the next part, which hopefully Ross will cover. But again, like I said, if people have got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll try and answer them towards the end.
So look, we wanted to, there's loads of tips that we could give you. Yeah, if we could be here all day, have a day webinar around this. We just wanted to really give you some key areas. And I think the first thing we looked at is research, is actually understanding the sector, understanding the types of businesses, the types of companies you want to work for, what are out there. So understand the specific sites of the sector you want to work to be involved in. Look, we're going to go, Tom mentioned, we're going to go into questions. We had quite a lot around like people with software and saying like, how does that work? Like there are so many jobs in software in the space industry, geospatial industry, linked industry, that you can look at. So sort of understanding where you would like to work is quite a good place to start. Stay up to date on industry trends and developments. Things like watching the rockets, knowing when the launches are is always good. But LinkedIn's a great community for people. X, there's loads of different papers that you can keep on top of, and I'm sure all of you are anyway. Anyone that I meet in the space industry pretty much or is learning or training in the space industry, they want to keep up to date. But it is a really good tool, especially when you're talking to people, you understand what's going on, what's doing it. And then understand where the biggest challenge areas are. And also try not to think about the challenges that are there right now. Yeah, what are the jobs that people are hiring for right now? What we talk to a lot of these business leaders is what are the roles that you're going to be looking for? What are the challenges? There was the Space Skills Alliance did a survey a couple of years ago about like the skill shortage, and actually software, data, and AI was the highest in like the CEOs of these companies and people answered where they see the biggest skill gap. So it's looking where these skills are going to be in, say, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years time, and especially at Open University where it can take a little bit longer to do your degree. It's always thinking a few steps ahead. But look, you look at obviously the research into why and why do you want to go in the space sector. I think that's important anyway. Yeah, you need that motivation to keep you interested in it, but also the passion, the interest in space. When you're if you do get interviews or you're talking to people at these businesses, there's probably a reason why they work in space. So understanding why you want to work in space and will help you then with why you're suitable, and what your strengths are. Yeah, and it sort of says that build up your CV with cultural life experience, which can relate to the roles in the sector. Again, you've been a software developer for a company developing application in the financial industry or in the automotive industry. It is building software, so that can then transfer into, it doesn't matter whether that software is controlling satellites or the data coming down or a robotic arm, is still software. So I think it's looking at what you've done and how that can relate to the roles that you're looking for in a specific sector. And then obviously do the research when. It's not a huge industry, it's a growing industry. Yeah, the space industry has been around for a long time, but it's still a very emerging industry. So this is going to be there, and we all know in the future, eventually we're looking at like settlements on Mars, etc. It can take time. So remembering that and going, if it takes me a few more years and it gets me the role that I want, understanding that. But yeah, the patience is key. I think definitely that's something people are going to Open University involved in that, understand that, but that continuous learning, that continuous development, it is so important, not just in the space industry, but it is highly relevant because the technology is changing all the time. It's advancing so quickly. You need to keep up on top of it. And then looking at like getting into networking, I think is a very good skill, and I will say networking is a skill now, to have again in any industry, but particularly in the space industry. It's still quite a small industry. People do know people, but also what I would say is it's a very welcoming industry. Yeah, people are so passionate about what they do, and people in the industry know for it to be able to survive, it needs to bring people in, not just from the space industry and grow it, but from different sectors, different diversities, different ideas, that can help build the overall sector. Some of the things people are doing is the virtual events like this, conferences, workshops, webinars. That's what we do most of our work around, is getting out there, meeting and speaking to people and understanding the challenges and the problems they face. There are a lot of free events to attend, and a lot of talks, webinars like this. It's just finding them. There are a lot of paid ones as well, but also there are a lot of things that you can get as being a student or part of certain institutes where you can get discount. But the bottom line, is confidence is key. The more you network, the better you get. Sorry to sort of divulge off of what's on the presentation, but we did the UK SEDS conference a couple of months ago, and we spoke to a few students. We had a few come up. We did a workshop on networking, interviewing, taking your CV, and then we were actually at the Spacecom Expo in Farnborough. It was about a week or two after, and just we were walking through and like just had this guy run up to us and like tap us on the shoulder. Me and Tom were like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And it was one of the students that was there, and he's like, guys, I've literally got 2 interviews off the back of your advice. I bought my CV and spoke to people and just said I'm looking for a job, and actually got 2 interviews off the back of it. But he was just like, I just did what you said and just really confident, went up and spoke to people and got 2 interviews booked in off the back of it. That does help. It shows you're passionate, it shows you're interested, and it goes a long way. Can be hard, yeah, and you may have to build up that confidence, but the more you do it, yeah, the better you get with it. and why it is important. As I said there, they have standards. The events is a big thing. Networking is big for the industry. It involves bringing hundreds of people from different projects into one project to launch a rocket. Yeah, so networking, understanding who you need to speak to, etc., is massive, and it gives you a chance to speak to people in the industry, which again will help your knowledge. I think that's number one. Yeah, understanding who are these people, what do they actually do, what are the skills they have, what are the challenges they face, but also it can help. Yeah, people like to help each other. Yeah, we're human people. We're built on relationships. If you're looking and that their company they work at are hiring, they could potentially give you a referral or point you in the right direction, and you really don't know what can come off these connections for everyone down the line. As I said, that different events take part monthly, but I think utilizing social media to identify the best ones for you are quite good. See who's attending, see who your friends are attending, see who your network are attending. And again, yeah, the more you attend, the more you meet, the more you learn. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want me to?
Yeah,
I'll jump into this one. So I think that a lot of it comes down to being proactive as well. And we've been in our role, there's so many different events, so many different people you can reach out to, but even when you're searching for a role, we say it to people time and time again, you have to sort of set yourself goals, because there's so many different opportunities out there. You have to sort of set yourself tangible goals. If we always say, if you send one CV to one company, you're really limiting your chances. So you kind of have to be a bit proactive and actively seek out opportunities. So again, not related to this, but my brother has just come back he'd worked for a business for 9 years, took some redundancy, went traveling for 5 months. He's come back. Obviously, the job market is pretty tough at the moment. So he's come back, and rather than just applying for active jobs, he'd identified 15 to 20 businesses he'd be interested in working with, and proactively sent his CV in saying that this is my situation. I'm really interested in the opportunity. Would love to understand if there's any upcoming or current requirements. And off the back of that, he got more interviews from that than he did from actively applying. So I think that's something, and a takeaway I would suggest from everyone, really, if there's a list of potential target businesses, either in your area, a bit further afield, be proactive in reaching out to them. Don't wait for a job to pop up and put an application in, because at that stage, that is when there is probably hundreds of people applying. And sometimes, yeah, there may be people with the more relevant experience. Whereas if you're proactive with it, it shows that passion, shows that interest, and there could well be a gap in a business for you. I think, again, be proactive. If you're applying for a role which is in the space sector and you don't have the experience, and you get given that feedback, ask for a bit more feedback. Is there anything else I could be doing to stand out? Any other suggestions, recommendations? So always look to take on board feedback. And I think why it's important that you do that and set yourself the goals is you can then measure what progress looks like. It's any walk of life, any job. If you've got goals, you can work towards them. But again, tools and how to actively seek these out. Use LinkedIn. That's a massive one. I've just seen a message pop up saying, how do I connect with us? We're pretty busy on LinkedIn. So if you just search for both our names, we'll pop them in the chat after, and we're more than happy to connect with people, have conversations, try and give you that sort of support and point you in the right direction. Even if we can directly help people with any business we're working with, we're more than happy to point people in the right direction, or even recommend people to businesses that we don't actively work with. I think, yeah, the feedback bit is a gift. Keep taking on board the feedback you receive from people, and then you can work towards and build out your CV. But the biggest thing I would say when it comes to being proactive is set aside time. And by that, I don't mean full time, right? I'm spending 10 hours today trying to work through looking for a career. Almost little and often, the more frequent you do it, even if it's short messages here and there, you're more going to likelihood is you're going to create more chances, because the sector, it's always changing. Like we spoke to one customer yesterday who is awaiting to close funding. Tomorrow they could end up not getting that because the VC's not provided it or whatever. So it can change on sort of almost a weekly basis where the money's going, where the projects are going, and where these big defence projects are going. So by being more frequent with it, but not doing as much in stints, then it does help massively, because you'd be surprised an opportunity might pop up when you kind of least expect it. And I guess, yeah, look, before we go into more of a Q&A, I think the biggest thing that what I've seen in a couple of chats and a couple of the questions, the space sector requires people with experience, and that's even if you go outside the space sector, even across STEM, which is narrow focus on, every business we speak to are looking for people with good experience, life experience, where they've been in challenging environments, where they've had to deal with a really tricky scenario to make sure they hit a project deadline. People who've been involved in problem solving, where they've had to come up with a solution pretty quickly, otherwise they're going to run the risk of losing a customer or something was going to go wrong within the business. And then on top of that, if you've got the passion for it as well, there's absolutely a gap for you in the market. It might not be immediately, it might take a few months, it might even take a couple of years, and sometimes people don't want to hear that. But in order to get the right opportunity, it's important that as individuals with experience, you showcase your experience, you showcase your ability to problem solve, be adaptable, and also get across your sort of passion and being part of things like these communities. Studying it at the Open University is massive on that, and you'd be amazed at how many CEOs, co-founders we speak to who are really looking for individuals who can bring that to their business and help them take them to the next level. I think that from our point of view, that's it in terms of the questions. I know there's a few questions asked before which we sort of got some answers for, but I guess the first two questions in the chat, Philip, if you want us to just answer those ones, and if there's anything you want us to cover. But I guess the first one from Clay is, look, yeah, absolutely understand everyone's situations are different when it comes to being able to just up sticks and move. We get that. The remote working landscape, people are pretty open to it at the moment. We work a lot of the time with fully remote positions throughout Europe. In the UK, obviously, if you're heavily involved in engineering and manufacturing, sometimes there is that on-site presence required. But obviously, if you're based down in sort of Southampton, Portsmouth area, I imagine there's fairly easy links to sort of Oxford, Surrey, potentially, even if it's for 1-2 days a week. So I think that potentially pick that up offline. Happy to connect on LinkedIn and sort of talk through that further if that works. See the love heart, so I assume that's a positive reaction. So I'll pop our names in the chat to catch up. Ross, you want to answer Matthew's one?
So there's every role in. There's space companies are still companies. So if most companies take on payroll analysts, there will be payroll analysts at a space company. Yeah, it depends on the size. Have I ever placed a payroll analyst in the business? I can't pretend and say I haven't in the space business, but the finance side, there's a lot of roles that come up. Again, it's probably connecting with people that currently work at these businesses, the financial people within the business. But if you approach a candidate, a space company saying, look, I'm a payroll analyst, but I also study in space. Yeah. If I'm looking for a payroll analyst and I run a space company, I'm probably going to speak to you. Yeah, because of that background. So I think it's having a look and keeping your eye out, and they will come up from time to time. And if any of our clients ever do, then we know where to go if they do need a payroll analyst.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah.
I think on that as well, within the sector, I think there's this perception that it's engineers, it's project managers, we've placed executive assistants within the sector who are passionate about space, and that we've placed account assistant, support in the IT support people, we've placed engineers, we've placed technicians. That it's so broad, the sector, and again, by showing that you're studying this and your passion for it, then that will massively help as well.
Did you want to go into some of the questions?
Not sure who they were from, so just have to kind of read the question and the answer.
Yeah. So we wanted someone that's studying a maths and physics degree and looking for opportunities in the space industry. And I think that was quite a good question, actually, because it's kind of relevant to what we're speaking. But maths and physics is becoming more and more popular. Yeah, not just because of films like Oppenheimer and stuff like that, or everyone getting good, but the fact that you've got that analytical problem solving background. Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing, and Tom mentioned it quite a lot. But there's that quantitative skills that you're sort of developing, and that's important in the space industry. So there's a couple of areas that you can go into, and that these aren't the only areas. These are just some that I sort of know that are quite popular. There's the spacecraft engineering and design, understanding physics, to work on the mechanics of space vehicles can be quite important. Astrodynamics, orbital analysis, orbital dynamics, that type of area, applying your mathematical principles to predict orbits of satellites, etc. There's a whole industry around space debris tracking, space traffic management, space domain awareness. So that is a massive sector, so something to look at. Actually, on the software that the companies are using, these satellite operators, the more satellites we put up there, the more chance there is of things crashing into each other. So there's a whole sector, and within that, there's the data analysis side. Yeah, huge amounts of data being collected from space. Yeah, satellites are probably collecting the most data out of everything, but also analyzing that data from space missions. Loads of areas within that, and then the research and development space is very research and development heavy, and I reckon why a lot of people want to get involved, working in cutting edge research, involving new technologies. Mathematics and physics is huge within that one, and it can help. I think, look, being a problem solver is the biggest thing. I'd always say maths and physics. The biggest thing I'd say as well is, if you can learn to code, Python, etc., it's a huge advantage. And most people that are in education or research are doing that anyway. And then another question we got was at 37 with a background in web API development and leadership in tech teams. 5 to 20. I'm exploring a career shift to the space industry while studying astronomy and planetary science. Concerned about starting at my age. I'm seeking advice on making this transition effectively. I'm 34, nearly 35, 37 isn't old at all. And actually the API, the website, that is a critical skill needed and is an area that the space industry is going to grow. Okay. Does every space company use APIs? Yes, they ingest it, they design it internally. But even if you look at like companies like SpaceX, yeah, they have front ends on their products. They have the mission management, they have tools. There's a number of different, like everything uses software. So I would think is some of the stuff that I look at is not only feasible, it's actually a very, very good thing. Yeah. So actually looking at your situation, your background, using it as positive, like Tom was sort of saying, and we sort of ran it in the presentation, actually looking at your skills and going, that's my skill set. How can then this be applied to the space industry? But systems that support large scale products is valuable. Every space mission, system management, operation codes uses software. Continue education. Keep understanding and building on your astronomy and planetary science. That can then help with companies maybe that are building satellite tracking software. They're a SaaS company. They just happen to be that their software is used by space companies. And then look at the other industries that can come into it. There's a whole other layer, like an application layer, under the data that's collected from satellites, that uses software and APIs. But network within the industry, get to see those people. There are leaders that with exactly the same skill sets that are running software teams within the industry. Connect with them, see what they're doing, see what skill sets they do, see what languages. Yeah, you'll probably see some massive similarities. They'll have a front end team, a back end team. They'll be using cloud, containerization, Docker, that sort of thing. It'd be the same. It just happens to be in a space or satellite company.
We just had a question in the chat that's relevant. Apart from Python, what other languages are used in the space industry?
I've seen them all. Recruited front end roles, MERN, JavaScript, C#. I think Python and C++ are definitely two of the biggest languages that I've seen around that. But again, you see, depends on flight software. There's different software. There's different software in the more defense based companies, but I would say definitely Python and C++ are the two that I see most.
Cool. There's also one from Tom Barber, I think, in in terms of ex-athlete programs, good point, because I have seen the JP Morgan stuff when it comes to that in the finance sector. Off the top of my head, not aware of any. But again, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, we can definitely speak to some potential customers. I'd have thought some of the bigger organizations may, but there's nothing I've actually, I can't say, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's loads. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's something to definitely have a look at and take up offline on that point, because Ross, I'm not sure if you're aware of any, but I've not seen any off the top of my head where this sort of program in place.
I'm sure they look at it, maybe something with the. No, I haven't heard of them. I'm just thinking somewhere in the US with somewhere like Axiom or something like that. But I definitely think, look, use what you had as an athlete. Yeah, if you, again, there might not be a program, but understanding the skill sets, the tools that you gained as an athlete, which I'm sure there's a number of them that you can then transfer through. But look, it's a good one to look at, and good question.
Yeah. One of the questions I had was, and Adam was going to answer, was someone who's sort of a mid-career electro-optical engineer working for the MOD, and sort of asked whether or not is it a younger person's game. What are the options to potentially transition into the sector? And I think hopefully we talked around some of it, but I don't know if that individual's on the call. But if they're not, anyway, to answer that question, I think first of all, that experience would be vital in a lot of the sectors. So if you think of satellite imaging, remote sensing, space surveillance, defense technology, a lot of the experience that someone with that background would have, and also working within the MOD, is definitely going to have immediately some transferable skills, probably knowledge, and probably a network of potential businesses, companies they've worked with or been aware of before. So absolutely, definitely not a younger person's game, especially when it comes to some of the more defense-focused contracts. People with experience who've been there, done it, have worked in companies where stringent processes, potential SC, DV clearance is massively important in the sector. So for me, definitely, if someone's coming from the MOD with that background, then there's definitely an opportunity for transitioning across. And then one of the other questions I had was someone who's having a midlife career change. Early on in a physics degree, could get the opportunity to transition into the space sector without waiting 6 to 8 years to graduate. Look, it's definitely going to be challenging, but it's not impossible. I think for us, what I would suggest on that, and I think we touched on it a little bit, was the sort of part-time pieces of work. So almost considering throughout that journey, looking at alternative pathways to get in there. Yes, if you want to continue doing your physics degree, absolutely do it. But in the meantime, there's opportunities which will likely pop up and for part-time work. And suddenly, we say it quite a lot, if someone gets their foot in the door with experience and does a good job on a part-time basis, realistically, there's a major chance that you'd be taken on full-time. And some businesses will support people doing their studies on the side anyway. So I think for that would be important. And again, back to the networking piece, if you can get to some of the free events, speak to people, understand those, sort of explain your situation and ask them for recommendations, because a lot of people within these businesses have done it themselves. They've transitioned into the sector. So again, can't fully answer that, but that's sort of how we'd probably approach that one.
Yeah, there was a question in there as well about GNC and SADC. I've done some GNC roles. I've not done anything really in the satellite altitude bit. What I would probably say is what you enjoy more. Yeah, if you like the systems that guide the trajectory, etc. Of GNC might be a bit better, but obviously if it's the operational aspect of satellites and that SATCOM side, then look at that. They're both growing. They're launching more and more satellites. They're launching more and more spacecraft. So there's going to be a need. And every time that I spoke to business, they're probably one of the harder to fill roles. Yeah, they're the roles that people are always looking at, and good GNC engineers are always looked at. So yeah, what your passion is, and I think they're both good. If it was me, just purely because the more roles I've seen at the moment, I'd go GNC, but that's just off of what I know. Yeah, that's not the whole sector, etc.
Brilliant.
So
Thank
is
you
there,
for that,
if
both of
anyone's
you.
got anything to jump in while we're on? Sorry.
I've just got one quick question I want to ask. It's about identifying opportunities, because I see a lot of companies that advertise like UK Space Agency, we're recruiting now, etc. Is there a particular period stroke peak season where recruiters are looking for people within the space industry, or is it all year round?
I think Tom's just dropped off then. So
Yeah,
he's left me to answer that one on my own then, yeah. It's all to do, I'd go with the projects. Yeah, it's all when the projects are going out.
Okay.
You tend to see in the summer, does it quieten down a little bit because of Easter, people go on holiday in Europe? Yes. Christmas, you see that. Towards the end of the financial year, people have got budgets to spend. New Year's, people have got budgets to spend, but it's very much project and funding related. It's the whole world over the last year or 18 months, it's been a bit inconsistent. So the patterns are a bit hard to look at, but yeah. If that answers your question, it does and it doesn't, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, I mean, it does really. It just says that there isn't one. It all depends on when the companies are doing what they need to do. I think we've just got time for one final question, because I know you've got to finish by 8 o'clock. Dave Harris, there's one there from Dave.
I'm going to catch him before I turn 50. The industry is going to need to change, definitely, and I think it has changed. And this isn't just space related. Yeah, this is other industries. Could there be a perception that people are too old and people look for younger people? Yes, that happens, but I think people's opinions, things are changing. Is it too late to transition over? Well, I'd say straight away is no. Yeah, again, we've used examples, real life examples. My dad started a new job at 60 the last month. Left a job that he'd been at for a comfortable year, could have retired and went and started a new job at 60 in a little bit of a different sector. So it's never too late. Can it be tough? Can it be challenging? Yes. But again, the networking, getting to know where you want to work, etc., and finding the right role. There's a right role out there for everyone. So no, it's going to be my answer to that one. But I understand the challenges and the preconceptions that are out there. That do need to change, that younger people are better, but also younger people are finding it hard to find jobs at the moment. Middle-aged people are finding it hard to find jobs. There's a bit of turmoil, but it is getting more positive. And yeah, if that's what you want to do and you're focused on it, you'll be fine. Okay, that's great then. Okay, if there isn't anything else, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for both of you for joining us and giving us that thank you for having us as well. And I am sorry about the little mishap at the start. Just don't touch us. Just don't trust us to press red buttons anymore. Okay. But look, good luck, and look, we really do enjoy doing things like this. And yeah, it's actually quite